My name is Sheila Corinna. Welcome to New Light Streaming Love and Sassy Seer Sheila, as this will appear on both channels. Uh, ah, Sorry about that. Did not know that that would pop off like that. Okay, so this is Your Mind Is Not You, The Ultimate Truth Behind the Illusion by Jason Gray. At the very core of the human experience lies a profound and revolutionary realization that for the vast majority of people remains hidden. The mind is not you. This fundamental insight shatters the illusions of identity that have been constructed over lifetimes. It challenges everything we think we know about the self, consciousness, and existence itself. What if everything we have believed about our identity, the very essence of who we think we are, has been nothing more than a construct, a fragile layer of falsehoods wrapped around a deeper unspoken truth? This realization does not come easily. It requires that we break free from the deepest patterns of our conditioning, the assumptions about our nature that we have carried through the ages, which is something I've been speaking on for quite some time, actually. It requires, apparently I need to read that a second time. It requires that we break free from the deepest patterns of our conditioning, the assumptions about our nature that we have carried through the ages. It requires us to question the very nature of thought, consciousness, and existence. To truly understand this, we must examine the nature of thought itself, the mind's role in our experience, and the deep space of awareness that lies behind all of it. The illusion of the thinker. Who are you really? Well, that's a question I've been asking myself for several years now, right? Isn't that well, if you've been following me for a while, you know that is my quest now. From the moment we are born, we are taught to believe that we are our thoughts. We are conditioned by society, culture, and even our families to identify with the voice in our head, the ongoing narrative of our mental experience. We grow up thinking, quote, I am thinking, I am what I think, my thoughts are mine. End quote. We begin to form a bond with this voice, assuming it is the essence of who we are. We start to identify with our judgments, our desires, our fears, and our opinions. This is what we call, quote, me. This is what we believe to be the true self. What if this entire assumption is wrong? What if you are not the thinker of your thoughts, but something far more profound, the witness, the awareness that observes the thoughts, but is not defined by them? Well, that is pretty profound, number one. And number two, I've been practicing the last few years getting really quiet so that I could hear that even deeper voice. The one that's much, much softer, the one that doesn't push. Mm. And I'm in these moments of now, as I'm feeling into what he's saying here, I wonder, isn't perhaps that part of the observer, the the more expanded portion of me? I don't know. Interesting. What if this entire assumption is wrong? What if you are not the thinker of your thoughts, but something far more profound? The witness, the awareness that observes the thoughts, but is not defined by them. When you pay attention to your thoughts, what do you notice? For me, I notice that there are more than one thinker up there. No, not really that. I've kind of identified it as, for me anyway, the little me, the ego personality, that which has been programmed, Sheila, and a larger, more expansive me. Well, and I maybe not even me, but that witness and is what I had thought that was. But we'll see. Hey, I'm open. When you pay attention to your thoughts, what do you notice? Thoughts arise spontaneously. They come and go, flowing like a river, often without your conscious control. The more you observe, the more you realize that you do not create your thoughts. They appear to you. They arise from a place beyond your will, beyond your conscious intention. Try this now. Sit in silence and attempt to stop thinking. You will notice that no matter how hard you try, a thought will always emerge. Am I doing it right? Why can't I stop thinking? Even the attempt to stop thinking creates a thought, further demonstrating that thought is not something you can control. It arises, but it is not the product of you as the thinker. The voice in your head, that inner narrative you call, quote, your thoughts, is not your essence. It is simply a product of a mental process that happens to you, not by you. It is a symptom of the body-mind system, a machine that processes information, memories, and stimuli. Because we are conditioned to believe in the narrative we hear, we identify with it. What does this mean for who we truly are? The mind as a tool. The biological computer. The human brain is, without a doubt, an extraordinary biological organ. It processes sensory information, stores memories, formulates thoughts, and helps us navigate the world. Here is the fundamental question. If the brain is the source of your mind, then are you the brain? Are you the collection of neurons firing within your skull? The answer is no. You are not the brain. Just as a car is not the driver, The mind is not the true self. The mind, much like a computer, is a tool, a sophisticated tool designed to help you process information, make decisions, and interact with the world. I've often said that I've come to the conclusion that my ego, the personality, that which has been programmed and calls itself Sheila, is a focusing mechanism for the divinity for the divinity that resides within. That's my working hypothesis at this moment. When you mistake yourself for the tool, you lose touch with the deeper truth of who you are. The brain is an incredibly complex machine, but it is not you. The mind is a process, collection of neurological functions, but the essence of who you are lies beyond this. It is pure awareness, the space in which thoughts arise and pass, silent observer behind all mental activity. When you begin to recognize the mind as a tool rather than the totality of your being, you start to see that thoughts, emotions, and even memories are not the defining characteristics of who you are. They are simply phenomena that arise within the vast, boundless awareness that constitutes your true self. The mind may shape your experience, but it is not you. The illusion of the ego, the false self. The mind also creates a false sense of self, a self we call the ego. The ego is not an actual entity, but a construct of thoughts, beliefs, and identifications. It is an image of yourself built over time, reinforced by social expectations, familial structures, cultural conditioning, and personal experiences. The ego thrives on separation. It says, I am this person, distinct and separate from others. I have a past, a history, and a story. I am this body. I am this personality. In truth, the ego is a mask, a fiction created by the mind. The ego clings to memories and narratives, pretending that the past is who you are. The ego resists change because it believes that the quote, self must remain stable and unchanging. The ego judges and compares, constantly reinforcing its own sense of superiority or inferiority. The ego is driven by fear and desire, seeking validation, avoiding pain, and clinging to control. The ego is a collection of thoughts and memories. It is not your essence. It is a mechanism created by the mind to provide a sense of continuity, but that continuity is illusory. Your true self is not the story you tell about yourself. It is the awareness that watches the story unfold, the space that allows the story to appear. The liberation from the ego comes when you stop identifying with it. Now, this part, and I even told Jason this part for me, whatever the reason, I never cottoned to the idea of killing the ego, mostly because yes, I do identify with being Sheila. I'm open to hearing what anybody and everybody has to say about it. I never could get behind the idea of killing it. Putting it in the passenger seat, yes, absolutely, because my ego was running my whole show for a long, 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 long time. And I even named it Smarmy. And so having Smarmy ride shotgun and learn, be open to learning things about himself and the world and the truth about who we were, for me, was the way I had to go. And so, should you be one of those sorts of people that also felt like, why do all the gurus want to kill the ego? Why are we trying to kill something? I never did understand that. I kind of like who I am. You know what I mean? And it feels like a point of focus. Again, doesn't mean I'm right. And your individual mileage absolutely will vary. Maybe that's why I haven't fully awoken yet, because I haven't been willing to turn that part loose. I don't know, but I'm willing to see. I'm willing to learn and hear about it. Okay, so the liberation from the ego comes when you stop identifying with it. When you detach from the false self, you realize that you are not limited to the person you think you are. Well, I've already realized that's a true statement without totally detaching from it. So I'm not quite clear on that, but okay. You are not your past, your name, your history, or your personality, which I do feel is correct. The witnessing awareness, the true self, to understand who you truly are, you must come into direct contact with the awareness that exists behind the thoughts. Now, if that's what I've been referring to as my larger, more expanded self, then, I'm all for that, because I don't think I've actually done that quite yet. I mean, that's part of the reason why I, have practiced the intuitive hangout sessions that I do, so that I could train myself to get more quiet and hear that voice. So, to understand who you truly are, you must come into direct contact with the awareness that exists behind the thoughts. This awareness is not a concept. It is not something you can understand with the mind. Well, I believe that's true too. It is the ground of your being, the source of all experience. I feel like that's true too. When you sit in meditation, when you step into deep silence, you begin to experience this awareness. You begin to notice that you are aware. There is a direct knowing that you are conscious. This awareness is not a product of thought. It is not something that can be defined, explained, or understood by the mind. It is simply what you are. This awareness is the silent observer. It is the unchanging, eternal presence that watches the mind, the emotions, and the body. It is the space in which everything arises and falls away. Most importantly, it is not limited by the mind. It is not bound by the body. It is not conditioned by the past. When you begin to experience yourself as this awareness, everything changes. You realize that you are not the thoughts. You are not the emotions. You are not the ego. You are the consciousness in which all of these things arise. This is the ultimate freedom, the liberation from the prison of the mind, the end of suffering, beyond the mind. The reason people suffer is that they mistake the mind for their identity. The mind is filled with fear, desire, guilt, and shame. It is constantly projecting into the future and ruminating on the past. None of this is real. All of it is a story. I do feel like that part is absolutely true because I've come to that conclusion for myself, absolutely, which is, I guess, partly why I have felt that I didn't want to kill it because I've come a long, long, long way with that. That's very interesting. When you realize that you are not the mind, you step outside the narrative. You see the thoughts for what they are, transient, passing, and ultimately inconsequential. You realize that you are not bound by the fluctuations of the mind. Well, I feel like that's true too. The mind may come and go, but your true self remains constant. Yes, this is true freedom. I do feel that already. Absolutely. It is the end of suffering, the end of identification with the mind, and the end of attachment to the ego. When you realize that you are not your thoughts, you enter a state of peace, stillness, and presence. The mind no longer controls you. The ego no longer defines you. The infinite, timeless you. When you transcend the illusion of the mind, you realize something even more profound. You are timeless. You are eternal. The mind is rooted in time. Okay, so I'm in total concurrence here. I have a theory, a working theory about some of this, though. It remembers the past, worries about the future, and measures everything in terms of duration. Awareness exists beyond time. It is outside the boundaries of linear existence. Very true. You, as the witness of the mind, are not bound by time. You are not the body that ages. You are not the person that dies. You are the eternal presence that observes all things. This is the ultimate truth. Yeah, see, I think both of these things are true. For me, my current working theory is that a lot of people call this ascension, what we're moving through. I, however, kind of see it. The little me is rising in frequency and knowledge and understanding, and the larger, more expansive me has been entering the physical vessel so that it's like a symbiotic. He does speak about dissension, right? Into the forgetting. I Part of what I feel is that the flame that he speaks of, it's like a melding thing. At least this is what it feels like to me in these moments, that this next iteration of whatever it is we think we're doing is meant to be done in these vessels in a knowing manner. I don't know if that made any sense, but at any rate, let's go back to this. You, as the witness of the mind, are not bound by time. You are not the body that ages. You are not the person that dies. You are the eternal presence that observes all things. This is the ultimate truth. I so agree. You were never born and you will never die. I truly feel that's true too. This is the radical truth that transcends all religious and philosophical doctrines. It is the core of every mystic teaching. You are the unchanging consciousness that has always been. You are the eternal witness, the source of all reality, the fabric of the universe itself. The path to liberation, letting go of the illusion. The key to awakening is simple. Let go of the illusion that you are the mind. Release the false identity that you have attached to your thoughts, your memories, and your desires. Step into the present moment and experience yourself as pure awareness. When you stop identifying with the mind, you experience true liberation. You are no longer enslaved by the fluctuations of thought. You are no longer trapped in the cycle of egoic desires and fears. You become free, and in that freedom, you discover your true nature. Infinite, eternal, and beyond all concepts. The mind is not you. You are the space in which the mind appears. You are the silent witness, silent awareness that watches over everything. When you fully realize this, you awaken to the boundless truth of your existence, free from the constraints of time, space, and identity. This realization is not a distant goal, but an immediate shift in perception. I think that's true too. It is a deep inner knowing that arises when you stop seeking answers outside and turn inward to the source of the all-knowing, the vast, still consciousness that is your true nature. The illusion of separation, unity with the universe. One of the most profound revelations that emerge from the realization that the mind is not you is the understanding that separation is an illusion. Now, I have felt that to be so. I have said, if you've followed me at all on this channel, which there's a lot of new subscribers because of Jason all of a sudden. So let me just share this with you. From my perspective at this moment, my working hypothesis, my what do you call my current thinking, right? That's what and I'm open always to being shown. That's why I say that. My current hypothesis is that we are all one, the consciousness, and separate. The only thing that separates us is the ego, is the time spent in these vessels, the mind. It's the only separation. And it is complete. It's total complete. It's like a partition on a computer program, on a computer hard drive. It's like a partition. And it's totally unique. But I also think that that's part of, at least for me, I keep being shown that that was part of the whole idea for doing this. Again, your individual mileage will absolutely vary. This is just where I'm at in the moment, and I reserve the right to change my thought process at any given time. So I'm going to read this again. The illusion of separation, unity with the universe. One of the most profound revelations that emerge from the realization that the mind is not you is the understanding that separation is an illusion. The mind, in its egoic state, perceives the world through the lens of duality, me versus you, here versus there, this body versus that one. And of course, it's also been programmed and conditioned in various unique and sundry ways throughout the entirety of its time on the planet. And the installation of said programming and conditioning happens with trauma. Every single being on this planet, every single ego has been traumatized to the nth degree. And for me, coming to that conclusion was huge, absolutely huge, because programming and conditioning is very tough to break, very tough to break, but it certainly can be done. I've been doing it for the last several years, allowing myself to see myself. That's the key, though. You got to be willing to see the programming and conditioning and ask self questions and move through it. There's a lot of bypassing that goes on because it's painful sometimes to look at said programming and conditioning and sit with all of those emotions that come up so that you can understand that you've been programmed and release them. At least that's, again, for me, and your individual mileage will absolutely vary. That's the entire point of all of this. So, when you transcend the mind, when you step into the awareness that is beyond thought, you realize that these distinctions are arbitrary, constructed by the mind, and ultimately false. Yes, partly because you were programmed since birth that it was to be true. At the deepest level of consciousness, all separation dissolves. I believe that's true too. You are not a separate entity in a universe filled with isolated individuals and objects. You are an integral part of the whole. And this is why I say that both things can be true, depending upon your perspective and your perception of that perspective. The boundaries you perceive between yourself and the rest of existence are merely mental constructs. That is so true too. The true nature of reality is oneness, a seamless fabric in which all things are interconnected, where the observer and the observed are one and the same. This realization is the heart of mystical experiences across traditions, whether in Eastern philosophies, Western mysticism, or indigenous wisdom. The sages, prophets, and mystics have all pointed to the same truth. You are the universe experiencing itself. Yes, and there's an and here for me. A huge and. And we're meant to. That's what this whole thing has been about, in my view. And we can get mad at it and say that, and there's, I'm sure there is been lots being done to us, because that's a true statement too. But there's more to it than that. Again, depends on your perspective and your perception of your perspective, in my view. In this sense, the mind is the instrument through which you momentarily perceive yourself as separate, but it is a veil. Beyond that veil, in the stillness of your true self, there is no division. There is only unity, only infinite awareness, and an all-encompassing love that transcends every distinction and separation. I truly believe that is true too. The mind as a mirror, reflection of the true self. The mind, while not your essence, does have a profound role to play in your journey of awakening. It is not the enemy. Thank you. It is not to be rejected or denied. Thank you very much, Jason. I'm so glad to hear that. It is the mirror through which you come to know yourself. That's true. And accept yourself too, by the way, for me. Just as a mirror reflects your image, the mind reflects your awareness in the world. Your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions are not, quote, you, but they are reflections of your inner state. Very true. They are indications of how clearly you perceive the true nature of reality. The more you awaken to the truth of who you are, the more your thoughts and emotions align with that truth, reflecting peace, love, and unity. Boy, that's so true. When you are identified with the mind, it distorts your perception, projecting images of fear, anxiety, and separation. Well, it's been taught that from the time it was teeny tiny, from the time we first come in here. Trust me, now as an adult, I have witnessed the installation of programming and conditioning into a child and what it actually does to them. We do them no favors with our parenting skills. Trust me. When you recognize yourself as the awareness behind the mind becomes a tool for insight, creativity, and expression. And I think that is the whole point, like I said, of why we come, why we're here. It becomes the vehicle through which you interact with the world, but it no longer controls or defines you. I so agree. Oh my gosh, I love this, Jason. You use the mind. The mind does not use you. And that's exactly correct. I told I asked my ego, my smarmy, and trust me, he's there. I say he because I have some very strong masculine qualities. I'm a girl and I love being a girl, but I have some very strong masculine qualities. And Smarmy, my ego, oh boy, Smarmy's got great big old brass balls that he needs a wheelbarrow to tote him around in. Trust me, all of my friends know that to be true. Well, all my friends, the folks I used to know in my life. At any rate, the point I'm making here is that as I began to get to know these truths in regards to the observer, I made a deal with Smarmy. How about taking shotgun? Let's allow the larger portion, the more expansive version of me, come to the front and show us a thing. Allow us to learn the truth of who we are. And oh my gosh, the beauty, I can't even, and let me just say it is a good time. And once I got past some of the really dark trauma and emotions, especially the issues with abandonment and betrayal and those sorts of things that one goes through, right? So you use the mind does not use you. Thus, the path of awakening is not about rejecting the mind, but about transcending it. Yes, it is about recognizing that you are not bound by it, not limited to it, and that you are the eternal witness behind the mind's activity. That is so beautiful. And yes, that's so true. In this way, the mind, though not you, becomes an instrument for realizing your true nature. Yes. For expressing the infinite potential of awareness through the form of thought, emotion, and action. Yes. The dance of thought and awareness. Integration of mind and self. Love this. The key to true freedom is not in a complete rejection of the mind or its functions, but in integrating it with the awareness of your true self, which is exactly what I just described a few minutes ago with Smarmy. This is the dance of consciousness. As long as you believe you are the mind, you remain trapped in a world of illusion. Very true. When you become aware of the mind as a tool, you bring harmony and balance to the inner landscape and a peace that passes all understanding. For me, I want to say, yes, the mind is not an enemy. It is simply a tool that can either serve or enslave. Very true. When you recognize that you are the awareness behind the thoughts, you regain your sovereignty over your mind. You begin to see thoughts as passing clouds in the sky of your consciousness. Yes, they arise, they pass, and you remain untouched by them. In my case, what I have found, especially if they arise and they were attached to programmed conditions like abandonment or betrayal, those things that I mentioned. Stop. Um, that by allowing them to surface and asking myself questions about them, by sitting in whatever those emotions are. This is what I learned from my housemate and my other collaborator on New Light Streaming Love, Crystal J. Hempill, Journey Into It. That's for me shadow work. That's when I decided I was a dark worker rather than a light worker, as I was looking in the dark and looking for all of those things within me that were keeping me enslaved in the mind, right? Because they hide. Oh my gosh, hides around the corner in a different shape and whatnot, So I love that. When you recognize that you are the awareness behind the thoughts, you regain your sovereignty over the mind. You begin to see thoughts as passing clouds in the sky of your consciousness. They arise, they pass, and you remain untouched by them. You are the sky, vast, boundless, and serene. The clouds, while part of your experience, do not define the sky. This integration of mind and awareness is a state of true mindfulness, not the mindfulness of the ego, which tries to control thoughts, but the mindfulness of pure awareness, where thoughts are simply observed without attachment, judgment, or identification. Now, because I was being enslaved by them quite a bit, I wanted to feel, because they were attached to trauma, they were attached to things, and it just kept resurfacing. And so by taking the time to delve into them, sorry about that, by taking the time to delve into them, feel those feelings all the way through, I could then allow them to subside and they wouldn't come back anymore. There's a difference between bypassing these things and really sitting with them and getting to the bottom of it. For me, again, your individual mileage will absolutely vary. So in this state, you can still use the mind to navigate the world, to create, to interact with others, and to enjoy the sensory experiences of life. The mind no longer dictates your state of being. And I call that a matter of presence for me. You are not disturbed by the fluctuations of thought. No. As a matter of fact, when things arise, where did that come from? And what's that attached to? And what's that about? Kind of thing, You remain rooted in the stillness of awareness, regardless of what thoughts arise. The liberation of being beyond the illusions of the mind. This shift in perception is what leads to true liberation. Liberation is not something external that you need to acquire, but rather an inner recognition of your true self. Oh, yes. It is a deep, unshakable knowing that you are not the body, the mind, or the ego. And that is true. For me, wow. You are the awareness in which all of these things arise. The entire point of this existence, honestly. You are the ground of being, the witness to all phenomena, the timeless presence that observes the ever-changing dance of life. In this state of liberation, you no longer seek external validation or approval. You are not attached to the outcomes of your actions or the opinions of others. That's true. Of course, me personally, I never was too worried about the opinions of others, but that's just, me. You don't get to be 490 pounds and have any kind of an existence if you're going to worry about the opinions of others. Trust me. um, you are free from the prison of the mind and its constant chatter. You are free from the false self that was created through identification with thoughts and experiences. When you no longer identify with the mind, you step into the flow of life. You become fully present in the moment, fully alive to the unfolding of the universe without the need to control or manipulate it. Yes, this is the freedom that comes from recognizing your true nature. You are no longer bound by the limitations of thought. You are infinite, boundless, and free. The true nature of reality, you are the observer. The final profound realization is that you are the observer of all things, the eternal witness, the timeless awareness in which the entire universe unfolds. Everything that you experience, your thoughts, your emotions, your sensations, the people you meet, the events you witness, is simply a passing show. Yep. It is all a reflection in the mirror of your consciousness. This is not a metaphor. It is the very nature of reality. What you perceive as the world, as time, as space, is nothing more than the play of consciousness. Just as the mind generates thoughts, so too does universal consciousness generate the world. The universe is not separate from you. It is the expression of your awareness. When you awaken to this truth, you begin to see the entire cosmos as an extension of your own being. I've been shown that in a whole bunch of different ways. Oh, yes. Which is why I've said many times that every single thing around me endeavors to communicate with me. It's just whether or not I'm paying attention. Absolutely. You see that there is no true separation between you and the world. You are not a small, isolated being within a vast and indifferent universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself through the lens of individual consciousness. Yes. Oh my God, yes. This realization is the pinnacle of spiritual awakening, and it changes everything. It just changes everything. And that is the reason why that ubiquitous they, fear more people realizing that. Because it changes everything. It is the recognition of your oneness with all that is. You are not the body, not the mind, not the ego. You are, but that's not all you are. You are the consciousness that permeates every atom of existence. You are the light that shines through all form, the awareness that is the very fabric of reality. When you fully recognize this, you no longer need to seek. You no longer need to strive. You are already that which you have been seeking. You are already free. You are already the universe. Oh, come back here. The journey then is not about becoming something or acquiring something. It is about realizing that you have always been what you sought to become. You are the awareness that is beyond all illusion, the eternal witness, the pure consciousness that is the ground of all existence. In this realization, you find peace, you find freedom, and you find yourself. The mind is no longer in control. The ego no longer rules. You have transcended the illusion, and in that transcendence, you find the truth of who you really are. The truth that has always been with you, waiting to be remembered. Wow. Well, in that case, because I really have felt like that is so. And that what this is all about now is the experiences of it. I do also feel like there's more. I don't know why that is, but well, I would love to hear from all of you. Feel free to comment and share. Also, if you don't, please know that if you comment, I have it set so that all comments are held so that I can read them. If I don't have it set to where I have to read them and approve them, then once there's so many videos on the channel, folks can comment and I would never know it. So this is a way that I go in and since there's a lot more commenting going on right now, I go in a couple of times a day and read the comments and release them. So if you don't see your comment right away on a video, please know that's why. But I don't hold back any comments. I release all of them. I just want to make sure that I get to read your comments. And if you don't feel to comment on the video itself, please feel free to email me at consciousconversationscentral@gmail.com. Would love to hear from folks, especially those who would like to engage in conscious conversation with me. And that's it. I hope that you will move towards that which brings you joy in each moment that presents itself to you. It is just a matter of your perspective and your perception of your perspective. And until we meet again, be well, my friends.